What is the highest paid genre in sync? Every music creator I've ever met always asks this question when they're just getting into sync licensing. Most of them are just guessing about the answer to this question. But brands don't guess. They spend thousands upon thousands of dollars on licensing music, and their choices actually follow a formula. If you follow the money and not the streams, nowhere is this more obvious than the freaking Super Bowl, where a 30-second song placement can cost 6 figures. I analyzed all 97 Super Bowl commercials so you could actually watch the game, and what I found flipped everything I understood about sync on its head. And if you make music for sync, this is going to be an absolute game changer. So to crack this formula, I tracked all 97 commercials during the game, and then I looked up on a website called ispot.tv, and it broke everything down into a few different categories to understand. Now here's where it gets tricky. Just knowing the genre is not enough. If you don't know why certain genres win, you'll keep making music that probably sounds great, but will never get placed. So I went even deeper. I didn't just track what was being used at that time. I tracked why it was used and who was actually getting those types of placements. And the most practical genre for sync that gets used the most is not what you expect it to be. If you don't know who I am, I'm XJ Will. I've made over $500,000 in sync placements by making music for brands and not fans. And I've helped others do it too. Now, genres are susceptible to change over time, which is totally understandable because popular taste evolves. But in the Super Bowl, it's a great test to figure out where brands are because they've done this research as well. And this year, despite the halftime show being very hip-hop centric, it was not the most popular genre used in Super Bowl ads. By a landslide, it was actually orchestral and trailer music. It showed up everywhere, not just in movie trailers, but tech ads, sports, and family brands. The reason why cinematic music works so well is because it can establish an anthem, an epic vibe, and it enhances storytelling. And because it's normally very instrumental, it's easy for dialogue to lay on top of so brands can talk about the products. Interestingly enough though, just because a genre is popular does not mean it's the highest paying. That's a complete different story. But before I drop which genre made the most money, if you're serious about getting into sync licensing, this is the exact kind of research we break down inside our private community called the Sync Alliance, where I share my actual data that you can grab for free with our 7-day trial link below. And also comes with an analysis of your music to make sure that it's built for sync. Now let's talk about the music that brands pay the absolute most for. As we know, Super Bowl ads are not cheap by any stretch of the imagination because it's going to be in front of the most eyeballs. The type of music that was getting used for these massive sync fees is not what you think. So I'm gonna tell you a story. While watching the game, a lot of people in our community were a bit discouraged because on the surface level, it felt like legacy catalog artists like Seal were dominating the tracks being used. But there's actually a secret way that regular peeps like you and I still landed Super Bowl placements without being famous. And it's always being slept on. It's by making covers of those actual legacy songs. Her, I think, actually landed a placement by doing the Bruce Springsteen cover. Re-recordings of older songs with a fresh, syncable twist are constantly being used in Super Bowl commercials. It's a cheaper way for the brands to actually get that nostalgic feel, and most supervisors find it to be very easy to clear. 42% of all 97 commercials featured covers from the 70s, 80s, and 90s because nostalgic vibes hit us differently as customers and are often being used in car commercials, insurance brands, and beverage companies to establish familiarity and trust. No coincidence that those are normally the most popular ads that people watch. It's actually kind of creepy when you think about it. Licensing a major hit for a cover can range anywhere between $250,000 to $1 million, so it's definitely worth your time. But high-paying placements aren't just about picking the right song or the right artist to cover. Even if you have a great sounding track, if it's not in the right hands, it's like a tree falling in the forest with no one around. It never gets heard. So who is actually landing these types of deals? That's where the next piece of data was extremely interesting. When most people think about landing a Super Bowl sync, they think they need to have a major record label deal or know a nephew of a CEO. Nope, don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. Out of all the placements, the majority of them did not come from famous artists. Most of them actually came from a source that tons of music creators completely sleep on. Over 55% actually came from music production libraries. Brands are turning to pre-cleared, production-ready music instead of major label songs because it's easier to clear. This is a huge win because that means that independent music creators like ourselves actually have a shot at landing these massive sync deals without stepping into a major label's office. And to help out, I left a free list of a bunch of them that I personally use inside the description of this video. Now that you know what brands are actually paying for and why they're using them, the next step is actually getting your music in front of these brands. And I actually did it myself with the NFL on CBS in about 7 days. If you want to see the entire process that landed me football placements last year and how you can actually apply the same strategies, click here.